all devotees. We start today's Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Satahajam Udiret नष्ट प्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्ति भवति नैष्टिकी. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Today we continuing Srimad Bhagwatam 11 chapter 28th Jnana Yoga, shloka number 27 to 35. तथा अपि संगः परिवर्जनीयः गुणेषु मायारचितेषु तावत् मद्भक्ति योगेन दृढ़ेन यावत् प्रजनिरस्ते मनः कषाय यथा आमयः असाधु चिकित्सितः नृणां पुनः पुनः संतुदति प्रोहणः एवं मनः अपक्व कषाय कर्म कुयोगिनं विद्यति सर्वसंगम. कुयोगिनः ये विहित अंतराये मनुष्य भूते त्रिदश उपसृष्टे ते प्राक्तन अभ्यास बलेन भूय युञ्जन्ति योगं न तु कर्म तंत्रम करोति कर्म क्रियते च जन्तुः केनपि असौ चोदित आनिपातात् न तत्र विद्वान् प्रकृतौ स्थितः अपि निवृत्त तृष्णा स्वसुख अनुभूत्या इष्टन्तम आसीनं उतव्रजन्तं शयान पुक्षन्तं अदन्तं अन्नं स्वभावम् अन्यत किम् अपि इहमानम् आत्मानम् आत्मस्तमति न वेद. यदि स्म पश्यति असत् इन्द्रिय अर्थं नाना अनुमानेन विरुद्धम् अन्यत् न मन्यत् वस्तुतया मनीषी स्वाप्नं यथा उत्थाय तिरोदधानं पूर्वं गृहीतं गुण कर्म चित्रम् अज्ञानम् आत्मनि अविव्यक्तम् अंग निवर्तते तत् पुनः इक्षया एव न गृह्यते नपि विसृज्य आत्मा यथा हि बाणोदयः नृचक्षुषां तमः निहन्यात् न तु सद्विधत्ते एवं समीक्षा निपुणा सती में हन्यात् तमिश्रं पुरुषस्य बुद्धेः एष स्वयं ज्योति अज अप्रमेय महा अनुभूति सकल अनुभूति एक अद्वितीय वचसां विरामे येन एषितां वाक् असवः चरन्ति. Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nevertheless, until my firmly practicing devotional service to me, one has completely eliminated from his mind all contamination of material passion. One must very carefully avoid associating with the material modes which are produced by my illusory energy. Just as an improperly treated disease recurs and gives repeated distress to the patient, the mind that is not completely purified of its perverted tendencies will remain attached to material things and repeatedly torment the imperfect yogi. Sometimes the progress of imperfect transcendentalist is checked by attachment to family members, disciples, or others who are sent by envious demigods for that purpose, but on the strength of their accumulated advancement, such imperfect transcendentalists will resume their practice of yoga in the next life. They will never again be trapped in the network of fruitive work. An ordinary living entity performs material work and is transformed by the reaction to such work. Thus, he is driven by various desires to continue working fruitively up to the very moment of his death. A wise person, however, having experienced his own constitutional bliss, gives up all material desires and does not engage in fruitive work. The wise man whose consciousness is fixed in the self, does not even notice his own bodily activities while standing, sitting, walking, lying down, urinating, eating, or performing other bodily functions. He understands that the body is acting according to its own nature. Although a self-realized soul may sometimes see in an impure object or activity, he does not accept it as real. Biologically, understanding impure senses object to be based on illusory material duality. The intelligent person sees them to be contrary to and distinct from reality. In the same way that a man awakening from sleep views his fading dream. Material nescience, which expands into many varieties by the activities of the modes of nature, is wrongly accepted by the conditioned soul to be identical with the self. But through the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, my dear Uddhava, this same nescience fades away at the time of liberation. The eternal self, on the other hand, is never assumed and never abandoned. When the sun rises, it destroys the darkness covering men's eyes, but it does not create the object they then see before them, which in fact were existing all along. Similarly, potent and factual realization of me will destroy the darkness covering a person's true consciousness. The Supreme Lord is self luminous, unborn, and immeasurable. He is pure transcendental consciousness and perceives everything. One without a second, he is realized only after ordinary words cease. By him, the power of speech and the life air are set into motion. Purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The word tathapi in this verse indicates that even though the material nature is non-different from the Supreme Lord, as elaborately described in this chapter, one who has yet to conquer material desire should not artificially associate with material things, declaring them to be non-different from the Lord. Thus, one aspiring to be Krishna conscious should not loosely associate with women, claiming them to be non-different from the personality of Godhead. For by such imitation of the most advanced devotees, one will become a sense gratifier, a neophyte devotee who presumes himself liberated is impelled by the modes of passion to become falsely proud of his position, and thus he neglects the actual process of devotional service to the Lord. One must have firm and steady engagement in the loving service of the Lord under the direction of higher authorities. Then advancement in Krishna consciousness will be easy and sublime. Sarva Sangam refers to one's stubborn attachment to material objects of so-called enjoyment, such as children, wife, money, nation, and friends. One increases his attachment to children, wife, and so on. Although supposedly performing devotional service to Lord Krishna is understood to be either a kuyogi, as described in this verse, or a bewildered neophyte who has failed to properly treat the disease of the heart called material attachment. If one has repeated relapses into material attachment, he has failed to eradicate the darkness of ignorance from his heart. Sometimes sannyasis and other spiritual teachers are bewildered by flattering followers, and disciples sent by the demigods to embarrass spiritual leaders who are lacking complete spiritual knowledge. Similarly, spiritual progress is sometimes checked by attachment to one's bodily relatives. Although an imperfect transcendentalist may fall down from yoga practice in this life, he will resume it in the next life on the strength of his accumulated merit, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. The word natu karma tantram indicate that a fallen transcendentalist does not have to pass through the lower stages of fruitive activity and gradually be promoted to the practice of yoga. Rather, he will immediately resume his yoga practice at that point at which he left it. Of course, one should not presume to fall back on the facility offered here, but should try to become perfect in this lifetime. Sannyasis especially should remove the knot of lust from their hearts and should avoid falling into the clutches of flattering followers or female disciples sent by the demigods to expose a so-called spiritual leader who is imperfect in Krishna consciousness, conscious knowledge. By sexual association with women, a man is driven to enjoy the female form again and again, and indeed he remains lusty up to the moment of death. Similarly, through association with family and friends, the knot of material attachment becomes very tight. Thus, the reaction operative work bind one more and more in cycle of material defeat. But a learned person's one who is in touch with the Supreme Lord within his heart realizes the ultimate frustration of material work and the danger of entering the home of pig or dog in a future life as the result of sinful activity. One on the platform of self-realization does not regard himself as an enjoyer of the world. Rather, he regards the entire cosmos as simply an insignificant expansion of the Lord's potency and himself as the Lord's humble servant. And a person can clearly distinguish between a dream experience and his real life. Similarly, Manishi or intelligent person can clearly perceive ill-polluted material sense object to be creation of the Lord's illusory energy and not factual reality. This is the practical test of realized intelligence. It is emphasized here that the eternal self is never assumed or imposed as a material designation, nor is it ever evident. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, the soul is eternally the same and does not undergo transformation. The modes of nature, however, create the gross material body and subtle mind as a result of one's previous primitive activities, and thus gross and subtle bodies are imposed upon the soul. Thus, the living entity can neither assume nor reject the soul, which is an eternal fact. Rather, he should give up the gross ignorance of material consciousness by cultivating spiritual knowledge as indicated here. The Supreme Lord is self-luminous, self-manifested, whereas the individual living entity is manifested by him. The Lord is unborn, but the living entity, because of material designative coverings, takes birth in conditioned life. The Lord is immeasurable, being all pervasive, whereas the living entity is localized. The Supreme Lord is Mahanubhuti, the totality of consciousness, whereas the living entity is tiny spark of consciousness. The Lord is Sakala Anubhuti, omniscient, whereas the living entity is aware only of his own limited experience. The Supreme Lord is one, whereas the living entity are innumerable. Innumerable. Considering all these contrasts between the Lord and ourselves, we should not waste time like the foolish material scientists and philosophers who struggle to find the origin of this world by their insignificant mental speculation and word jugglery. Although one may discover some of the gross laws of material nature through material research, there is no hope of achieving the absolute truth by such petty endeavors. Thus end the purpose. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Mana Abhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Pada Antikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapada Kamala Sri Gurun Vaishnava Pancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतम सावधूतम परिजन सहितम कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांच नमो ओम विष्णु पादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhecha Krupa Sindhuve Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Dandat Pranam. We continuing Canto Srimad Bhagwatam Canto 11 chapter 28.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, you are mute. You are mute, Mataji.
Sorry. Yes. We continuing the Canto 11 chapter 28 Jnana Yoga from shloka number 27 to 35. I will only told you one important point only, that who is intelligent, he should give up the gross ignorance of material consciousness by cultivating spiritual knowledge as indicated in this chapter. And so that is important to cultivate spiritual knowledge. Hare Krishna Dandot Prana. Prabhuji will tell you in detail. Vancha kalpatarubhecha kripa tanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji. So Krishna is now actually explaining us how, by this philosophical knowledge of who we are and what our relationship is with Krishna, we can still understand the importance of giving up all kinds of material associations. So this becomes an important point of discussion in view of the fact that we are parts and parcels of Krishna. We are supposed to be with Krishna, serving him. But unfortunately, because of our own mistakes, we have landed here in this material world. So just like a loving father would always want his son back home and care, similarly, Krishna cares for us. And in order that we go back home, he has created the methodologies and now giving us the right direction of where our home is. Until by firmly practicing devotional service to Krishna, one cannot completely eliminate from mind the contamination of material passion. Until we are not able to eliminate him, we should carefully avoid associating with material modes. Because just like in medicine, we say when patient comes to us, we give him medicines for X number of days because we know that the disease will be cured after those many days. But if the patient is not taking the medicines for those number of days or misses the dosage, then it is improperly treated. And then that same disease can recur again and give repeated distress to the patient. In the same way, if the mind is not completely purified of its perverted tendencies, then it will remain attached to material things and repeatedly torment us. And that is why going on this path completely, faithfully, with full conviction is very, very important. When Krishna is saying Sarva Sangam, it is referring to the stubborn attachment to material objects. And which are those material objects that are most difficult to be away from? It's children, spouse, money, nation, and friends. So when we increases his attachment, supposedly performing devotional service is ideally supposed to be called as kuyogi, a bewildered neophyte who is not treating the disease of the heart called material attachment. And so we have to be very, very careful. Our progress is going to be stopped by these attachments, or these are something which are actually Krishna says are sent by his demigods. But then, even if it is stopped, because of whatever little advancement we may have done, in our next life, we'll resume the practice of yoga. And then we'll not be trapped in network of routine work. So even if we don't succeed today, still we have to continue. Natu karma tantra, which indicate fallen transcendentalist does not have to pass through the lower stage of fruitive activity. Rather, he'll immediately resume practice at the point at which a person left. So we have to be always confident that yes, I am on the right path and I'm going to achieve success. Krishna explains that an ordinary living person is generally doing all his activities for material work, and depending upon the results of that work, he gets his next body. Karma yoga is what we have learned. So the person is driven by various desires till the last moment of that. But then a person who is wise and who has experienced the constitutional bliss will be able to give up material desires and does not engage in fruitive work. And that is what we are supposed to be doing. We have to understand that the entire cosmos is simply an insignificant expansion of the Lord's potency. And we are the humble servant to the Lord. So the moment we can fix our consciousness in the self, we will not be noticing the bodily activities. Whether we are standing, sitting, walking, laying down, urinating, eating, whatever bodily functions we do, we understand that the body is acting according to its own nature. So this is something which Krishna had clarified, which has been explained even in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam, in the first canto itself. When all the Pandavas left, that time the word comes that the dhyana udakritya bhaktyaha. And how premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santah sadaiva. So sadaiva means every moment. Every moment they do not see anything except Krishna. That is saintly person. So all the Pandavas, whether they were fighting, they were talking, they were involved in political activities, they were always having Krishna, thinking about Krishna. Even while sleeping, they were fighting also. That time also Krishna was there. So that is what has to be there. We should always be remembering Krishna. A sane person can distinguish between dream and real life. Similarly, an intelligent person can perceive the polluted material sense objects as the result of illusory energy and not factual reality. So we have to reach that state that this is not true. So there is no use in spending time on this because time is, after all, very little available. So whatever are the modes of nature, you have to overcome them. Cultivate the spiritual knowledge. And thus, the nescience will fade away at the time of preparation. As explained in Bhagavad Gita, soul is always same. It does not undergo transformation. It's the body which changes depending upon the karma phala. Krishna says that when the sun rises, it destroys the darkness, but it does not create the objects. They cease before them because those objects were already there all along. It's only that the sun rays have removed the darkness covering the eyes. Similarly, potent factual realization of Krishna will destroy the darkness which is covering our consciousness. Krishna is always there. He is unborn, immeasurable, anadir adir. His pure transcendental consciousness and perceives everything. He is anad, he is advitiya, but he is realized only after ordinary words. These by him, the power of speech and the life, everything is set into motion. So, Lord is Sakala Anubhuti, Mahanubhuti. Mahanubhuti is totality of consciousness. Sakala Anubhuti is omniscient. So, we may discover some of the gross laws of material nature through material research, but we cannot achieve absolute truth by such endeavors. The only way to achieve absolute truth is through the instructions of Guru and following that and ensuring that we go back home, back to Godhead successfully. Hare Krishna. Also, one more point which comes here is that only a true Guru, one who is there in the Guru Parampara, can transfer the knowledge which Krishna has given as it is. So, Guru is very important. And that is why this becomes our responsibility that we approach a bona fide Guru and question him about our material existence and how we can overcome this bhavsaga. We are lucky that we have got Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj who have clearly mentioned it. How do we go back home, back to Godhead? It is so simple that we have to just associate with the devotees. In their association, automatically the devotional qualities will come to us. We'll do the reading of the scriptures together. We'll do Harinam Sankirtan. We'll always take Krishna Prasadam only. And we'll always be engaged in deity worship. And that is the way to go back home, back to Godhead. Hare